I'm just wondering who's going back to.
Good evening. Thank you guys all for coming. I don't know, I see some new faces, I see some old faces, so thank you guys for folks who came again, and we welcome you for the folks that come for the first time this time. So just a couple of things before we get started. I want to let you guys know, and first of all, this room was generously donated by the Redondo Beach Hotel, who's very supportive of our efforts in this regard. So just want to do a shout out, a big thank you to them, and they'll be helping us out as we continue forward. As a lot of the development actually impacts their view, and they spent quite a bit of money redoing this hotel. So thank you to the Redondo Beach Hotel. And then want to also let you guys know that the bathrooms are down the stairs to the right, kind of have to curve around the building if you guys need to use the restrooms. Hope that you guys all signed in. It gives us an opportunity to build a database of folks who came and a database of folks who are interested, and just lets us know who's coming. So as we move forward, that we can continue to share our information. So, and I hope that you guys all took a little bit of a packet. I'll try to put together this each time we have a meeting. Last time I did so too. It really just tends to be a collection of thoughts between all of us, and articles that people send to us, and ideas, and just stuff that I think that you guys might be nice to take away. And I don't want you guys to come and leave empty-handed. So I'm Candace Nafisi. I am a former candidate for District 3 in this city who narrowly lost by 13 votes, but still want to be engaged. And still want to help as much as I can. So that's why I'm here today. And I'm here with Nils, who I can never pronounce his last name. So do you want to pronounce your last name?
Narenheim.
Narenheim. I'm close.
Just remember that, don't look at it again.
Even when we talk amongst emails, I call him Nils in. And this is Martin Holmes, who's going to be a very big resource for us and has been an incredible resource. And this is Jen White, which most of you guys know. So with that started, this is just kind of a draft agenda, and we'll kind of jump around. It's kind of nice that we have a smaller group this time, and I can really feel in my heart that everyone in the room is very concerned about what's going on. So feel free as we go. I think we're amongst friends to really shout out questions that you guys might have. Last time we had to have a very structured environment because of some folks who came in and wanted to make a ruckus. So we'll do our best to get questions in between if everybody's okay with that. Everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Maybe why don't we break it up? We'll take questions after each presentation. That way you guys can ask questions, and feel free to let this be an informal conversation, and no question is too dumb. I'll be honest with you right now, I don't know the answers to a lot of things, but Jim White does. No, I'm kidding. But we'll be honest with you. If we don't know the answer, we'll be honest with you, and we're happy to find out. So just FYI. So if we don't know the answer, we're totally okay with saying we don't know the answer, and I'll be the first to say I don't know. So with that said, I'll hand the mic over to Jim White, and I'll get questions afterwards.
Thanks, Candace, and thanks for coming out on a Sunday evening. I know everybody's got better things to do than sit here in a meeting. And I see some new faces, but I also see some faces of folks who were here before. So I will try to go through this fairly quickly, since this is the same slides I presented last time. Nils and Martin have some new data that they'd love to get out to you. But feel free, if I'm going too fast, to just stop me and ask questions. Okay, so a little bit of the history. In 2010, residents passed Measure G, and that allowed 400,000 square feet of additional development across the whole harbor front, not just down in the south end, but across the whole harbor front. The city ran a process then to find a developer for the south end of the harbor, everything from Portofino Way south, and I'll show you the project area on the very next slide. And they selected CenterCal for several reasons. One, because they already had funding, and because they said they'd enter into a negotiation without any more due diligence. There were two other companies that competed for it. They were both resort developers, and they both wanted to have more due diligence before they responded. But all three presented a vision. The city council, because of the funding and because of the lack of, they didn't want to do due diligence, the city council chose CenterCal, and that was a 4-to-1 vote. Bill Brand was the, as usual, was the opposing vote. The city then bought out all the leaseholds in the south end of the harbor and the pier. And Senator Cal has since developed a project description, which went into what we now has been released, the draft EIR. And the draft environmental impact report has been published. It's open for public comment until January 19th. You have to have your comments in by 5:30 p.m. on the 19th. The project boundaries, as I said before, go from Portofino Way, which is right across the street here, all the way to Torrance Circle. It includes all of the pier except the old Mondstadt Pier, which, if you know Redondo Landing, that's not part of this. And then the seafood places that are on the pier straight out aren't part of it. But everything else is, and they've included Joe's Crab Shack. That got added so that they can put a boat ramp in. And originally, Kincaid's was not included. They've included that now, although they're not planning to rebuild the Kincaid's restaurant. This is the current plan as it exists today, and I'll walk from left to right on this chart. This is the new 3-story parking structure with retail and restaurants all around it. This is 3 stories tall, 45 feet high, would be right across the street here, and a catty corner from where we're at. If you're out on that balcony, today you have a lovely view when the sun's out of the PV Cliffs, the ocean, and on clear days, Catalina, all you'll be able to see in the future is 3-story parking structure. Then as you come south, they've got one view corridor that they put in about 70 feet wide. They kept that because AES, the power plant company, still has a right-of-way in here for some pipes that go underground. So if they ever needed to do maintenance, they'd have to tear up their building. So they didn't build on there. They left that as this is one of the main components of their open space in their plan. Then here's a 2-story movie theater, 700 seat, what they call boutique theater, where you get served meals and stuff like that while you're watching the movies. Interesting to note, Westwood has one of these, and it's only 445 seats. So somehow they think, packed up in the water here, we're going to be able to serve 700 people. We've had 4 theaters fail in the area. I'm not sure why they think this would be successful. If there's kind of the premium seats for the iPic, which is what they compare it to, is $29 a seat, and that's no food or anything. And then they've got some more retail. Coming forward on this, you can see they've packed buildings all around their parking structure, and then they put a road through the whole development because they needed some additional parking, and they needed a way to circulate traffic to get up into the parking structure and to get to their market hall. So they actually put a road over this. They shrink Seaside Lagoon, fill in the lagoon part, and then open it up to the polluted waters of the harbor, and they expect us to swim in that. Here's the Joe's Crab Shack site where they, right now that's the leading candidate of where they would put the boat ramp. The study refers to several other alternatives, but right now this was the alternative that was evaluated in the primary part of the environmental impact report. Then they put 5 concession stands on what is today the Seaside Lagoon, so they packed even more on top of it. They put a road, put parking, and then they put 5 concession stands on top of the Seaside Lagoon. So this is 1/3 of the Seaside Lagoon is now eaten up by retail and roads, retail restaurant and roads. They have a couple more retail restaurant buildings here, and then this is their big market hall, which is both 1 and 2 stories tall. That thing is bigger than 2 football fields. It's a huge, huge building. Coming down International Boardwalk, it goes away, and they're supposedly moving a lot of those things into the market hall or the other concessions. And they put a road connecting Torrance Boulevard to Harbor Boulevard over the top. As we get into the pier side of things, the pier parking lot gets totally reconfigured so that they can put in a 3-story hotel with retail on the bottom, and then a surface parking lot here, and it goes down 2 more levels below that. And then, as we said before, they're going to leave the Kincaid's. Right now, if you walk down the Kincaid's right now, this is an open parking lot. This is solid buildings now, 2 stories high of retail and restaurants. And then this is called Pad 2, and they put a new restaurant out on that today. It's a vacant pad out on the pier. So that's it. If you look at it by the numbers, they're going from a total today of 219 to 220,000 square feet of commercial development to 524,000 square feet. If you throw in the parking structures, they'll have more than 1 million square feet of development down in our harbor and pier area, which is just huge. If you just take the area that's taking the brunt, if you look at this, is the harbor area. Today, there's 48,000 square feet of development in the harbor area, and there's no parking structures. Under their plan, there's 551,000 square feet of buildings, new buildings, the parking structures, the commercial and the restaurant. So they're packing 10 times the development right across the street here, corner from what there is today. Just to compare to some other projects in the area, so the project today is 221 to 524,000 square feet. The new point at El Segundo, total development is 115,000 square feet. So it's 1/5 the size of what they're planning to do in our little harbor. Manhattan Village today is 420,000 square feet. When they, if they go through with their proposed expansion, it would be about 670,000. I'm sorry, almost 700,000 square feet. Plaza El Segundo, which is just north of the point, that's 380,000 square feet of development. The new wing at Nordstrom's was 420,000 square feet. And if you take the Riviera Business District, it's 324,000 square feet, although most of that is, the vast majority of it is actually office space. So comparing to other projects, you can see this is a major development going forward in our harbor. These are the traffic impacts. I won't go into the details of how they generated all the numbers. It is a pretty accurate way to develop the actual trip generation. There is some flaws in how they compare it to current traffic, but it's a complicated argument, so I won't go into that with you. But if we just accept their numbers, they're saying that the development would create 22,000 car trips per day, and with their fuzzy math, they subtract it out and say that's an additional 12,550 car trips per day over what we see today. So we'll take them at their numbers, even though those are very low compared to what the actual impact is going to be. But even at that, you can see the traffic. This is the traffic today down there, 9,684 car trips per day. They're going to add 12,000, so they're more than doubling the traffic that's down here. And these are the days, if you look at peak hours, the peak hour in the evening would be 1,500 cars. So that's 1,500 cars tapping these roads in an hour. That's about 3 miles worth of traffic, more than what we have today during the peak PM hours. Now, what you notice, the big glaring error, anybody who's been to a shopping area in a harbor, you know the weekdays aren't their busiest days. There is no weekend traffic analysis for this. So that was convenient for them to leave out. They have not examined those impacts. Just to give you an idea of the daily traffic, so remember that number back here, 12,550. There's 3 main routes out of this area. Coming right up here on Barrel, going straight up Harbor Drive, or going out Torrance Boulevard. Those are the 3 main exits. So if you add this 12,550, that's about, that's on the order of 4,000 car trips each, if you just divide it evenly. So if you take a look at these are the current trips generated on each of these traffic corridors today. This is from a city document, the circulation element. Down in the harbor area, it's 10,200 car trips per day. So you can see if you add 4,000, that's almost 50% more traffic along Harbor Drive. If you turn up Barrel, it's 4,800. So you're almost doubling traffic on Barrel, and you can see how short this roadway is. There will be traffic blocks there because you can't make it through the red light and off of Harbor Drive because it's just too short to hold that many cars. And then Catalina's at 16,000, so 4,000 cars hitting that in some way, shape, or form. That's about a quarter more than what's there today. And you can see how PCH is already a zoo up there, so they're at about 40,000 car trips per day. And this would add another, this intersection's already rated E and F today, and it's not going to, adding this much traffic isn't going to help it. But there's some basic flaws, even if you don't want to get into the detailed argument of why their numbers are overly optimistic. There's some basic things they didn't look at in the EIR. And I know this from talking to the traffic consultant at the first EIR meeting that the city held. So the first off, there's 7 driveways currently today going into the harbor area that have no turn lane. So anybody who wants to turn is going south here and wants to turn into like Cheesecake Factory. There's no turn lane. So if bikes are going both ways, you stop and all the traffic behind you is halted until you can clear. And if on a busy, Saturday or Sunday, that can be quite a length of time, there's no stop sign there. You just keep going until you see a gap. In the proposed, they're actually upping that by one. There's no storage for cars that are turning. So that's a major impact to the ability of this roadway to take traffic. And they didn't account for that in their analysis. Same with the even the roads that do have turn lanes, they can only take 2 to 3 cars, and if you have a boat going by, you can only take 1 car in that turn lane. Oftentimes, if you're going into Spectrum in the evening at the rush hour, you get 2 cars in there, and the third one's sticking out into Harbor Drive, blocking traffic. If you come down here on any busy weekend, you'll see this. It just blocks up the entrance to the Ruby's area, and the Polly's on the pier often backs up as cars from both sides don't know how to get across with all the bicycle traffic. None of this was evaluated in the EIR. And then the other thing is the traffic infrastructure just can't take that much throughput leaving this area. So if you're going from Torrance, from Catalina to Broadway, that section of the road can only back up 13 cars before it's saturated, and cars have to wait for the next light to get through and even come into that section of the road. And then when you go from Torrance, from Broadway to PCH on Torrance, again, you only get 13 cars. Already during big weekends, that gets backed up all the way across Catalina Boulevard, and you have to wait multiple lights. They don't evaluate that. Their calculations assume free flow on both sides coming into the intersection and leaving the intersection, which I used to do traffic engineering studies for the Air Force. You'd throw that analysis out right away. As soon as you observe on the ground that there's backups going through the intersection or something preventing you from moving forward through the intersection, your calculations are no good, and you have to resort to the means to calculate the traffic. Same with Barrel. Barrel right out here can only hold 18 cars, and that's a normal car. If you have a truck or a car with a boat, it can hold even less. So those are just some blatant flaws that anybody driving down here could see that they didn't even look at in their EIR. As to view impacts, and the thing you're going to hear time and time again, as they go through these impacts, they rate this as no significant impact. They're going to add 12,550 cars to this, no significant impact. Then you go to view impacts, and this is straight from the EIR. This shows the view today, looking across. This is, she put it on the rocks. And you can see the cliffs of PV. You can actually see a little bit of Catalina here. You can see the water. Here's the view in the future. It takes that view and just narrows it down to barely a sliver of what's left in the water. And what's very deceptive in the EIR, they did 2 what they call critical views that they analyzed. Both of them just happen to line up with the 2 view slivers that they put through the development. There's none that shows the view anywhere else. But we did our own site analysis, as you can see here. This lays down their development in the harbor area, and these red areas are the only places you'd be able to see the water or the harbor anymore. When you do the calculations of the distance, they've cut out over 80% of the view that you have out here today. And that's conservative because I didn't take into account the landscaping and any signs for the buildings or anything like that. So at best, we're going to have 80% of the views from Harbor Drive blocked by this development. And of course, they said that was no significant impact. Recreational impacts, one of the things when you respond to an EIR, you just can't, you shouldn't just say, I don't like it, because that's not a valid complaint in the EIR. You got to say why their analysis was wrong or how it was flawed. And so I'm starting to give some examples of things that are blatant for people to see that you can comment on. Some other recreational impacts, the coastal recreational uses as the highest and best use of coastal property. That's why the Coastal Act was enacted, was to prevent development from limiting our access to the waterfront resources. 33% of the only public parkland in this development is now paved over. And I've got some slides on that later. Potential loss of 50% of the slips, and I've got a slide on that. They slid this in. We never heard about this during the public sessions before, but when the draft EIR came out, all of a sudden the sport fishing pier where Polly's is optional. And of course, its loss is no significant impact. You look, the Seaside Lagoon parking lot, which is right out in front of here, right now that hosts several events during the year. That's gone. If you like old cars, every Friday they have the old cars meet up down here. If you run the Super Bowl 10K, all the tents and registration are over here. Lobster Fest is over here, 4th of July. All those events now cannot be held in this area. So that's a huge impact to recreational resources here. And we lose a unique water feature, of course. The Seaside Lagoon is gone. It's the only one of its kind on the West Coast. And it has the fountains, the slides for kids. It's a very safe place for kids to play. Parents don't have to worry about the tide pulling kids in and out or waves. And it's chlorinated, so you're not going to get the pollution events that you might get on the beach, like we get just south of the harbor. So we lose that unique water feature. Then there's severe reductions in parking. For boaters who come in on their trailers, we're going from 67 trailer spots to just 20. And the Coastal Commission is making us put in a boat ramp because they want more people to bring their trailer boats in. So it makes no sense to cut your trailer spots when you're trying to attract more people. And that is the bare minimum. 20 is the bare minimum the state recommends in their ramp guidelines for a single ramp, and they're proposing 2 ramps. So we should have 40 to 60. If you go up just up the coast, 12.5 miles to Marina Del Rey, they have 8 lanes and 218 parking spots for trailers. Cabrillo has, I couldn't tell, I don't put my boat in there. I can't tell if it's 3 or 6 lanes. It's a pretty wide open type of arrangement, but they've got hundreds of Cabrillo Beach here. And they've got hundreds of parking places for trailers. You can see we're severely limiting the ability of boaters to get in there, and that's why the harbor was built. And we're also severely limiting parking for boaters, swimmers, SUP, and kayakers. They're saying basically that if you want to launch your SUP or your kayak, there's the small boat launch down there today behind the Seaside Lagoon, where you can park right out this parking lot and walk down. It's not, it's like 50 yards, and you can drive down to drop off your water vessel right in the water down there. Under their plan, you would have to park up in the parking garage and either tote your stuff all down or drop it off and pray that somebody doesn't take anything while you're up searching for parking amongst all the shoppers and everybody else who's trying to find a parking place in the parking garage. And then there's access reductions. The traffic limits the access, as does the limiting parking. There's a drawbridge that goes from the pier over to the harbor, the peak of the harbor where Sambas is. That's where the market hall will be. That is a drawbridge, and they're saying that it won't operate 24 hours a day, so those boaters who rent the slips have to sign a waiver that says they know they won't be able to pull their boats in and out probably during the evenings. Well, anybody who's a boater knows you get mechanical breakdown, you get somebody who gets sick out there, you get a call that something's going on at home, you got to get in. You can't pick the hours when you have to, or you get bad weather. You can't pick when you have to come back. And so this is a severe restriction on boaters. Opening the Seaside Lagoon and expecting people to swim there. It's poor water quality in the harbor. I asked the city for the actual analysis. All they sent me was the analysis for south of the pier, not in the harbor itself. So they don't, from what they've sent me, and I asked for anything to do with water quality in the harbor, they don't even know what they're forcing us to swim in the harbor. And if it's bad south of the pier, the harbor doesn't get the circulation. You know it's bad in there. We got sea lions in there. You got birds, doing their thing on the rocks. It washes off. It goes in there. And people are saying, well, runoff will be fixed in the center town thing. Well, they're not going to fix the runoff off the rocks or coming off the sea lions. And then on top of that, there is an analysis in there that says the sea lions probably won't come to the beach, but they may. And if they do, they're saying they will write a management plan that NOAA magically will approve, even though they haven't approved one for La Jolla Cove or children's pool, I think it's called, down in San Diego. The sea lions run those battles, and the seals run those battles. But somehow magically, we're going to be able to do something that those places couldn't. Even if they approve it, it has to be a city official or city employee that would force the sea lions off the beach. We couldn't, as we're bringing our SUP down, legally force the sea lions off the beach. That's a violation of the Marine Mammal Protection Act. So we're liable to get sued for harassment or charged with harassment. And then on top of that, from a safety perspective, if you're coming in with your SUP and you're paddling in, and kids are trying to play in the water and there's a seal trap between you, seals don't like being trapped. And they look all cute and cuddly, but they're big and they have nasty teeth, and people have been bitten by them, and that's without cornering them. So if you ask any of the guys who rescue seals or you watch them, they're not pleasant guys when you get close to them and they feel trapped. So you're putting kids in danger. And on top of that, there's no lifeguards. So, you're putting the kids in there at risk. They say in the EIR, oh, well, look, you have the vast expanse of the harbor now that you opened up for people to recreate in. Well, if you're an SUPer, you already have that. If you're a swimmer, I don't think they're going to let swimmers or want swimmers swimming out into the open part of the harbor. That would be a navigation hazard, particularly when you have the boat ramp right next to it. And they've not said how they're going to restrict swimmers from swimming outside of this area. Today, if you jump off your SUP and start swimming, the harbor patrol will come up to you and tell you to get back on your stand-up paddleboard because you're not supposed to be swimming. I wouldn't anyway because it's not clean water. And then finally, you know, I personally, if I was a kayaker or an SUPer, I would not use that kind of launch point because I would throw my stuff on the ground and then go find a parking place, nor would I want to carry a kayak or my SUP down through three or four layers of a parking structure. So they're going to impact the ability of stand-up paddleboarders and kayakers to use it. Right now, they estimate, they don't have a firm number, but they think the small boat launch ramp services about 50 people per day. And total stand-up paddleboard rentals throughout the harbor is 200 per day. So there's a lot of stand-up paddleboarding has exploded. There's more, if you go out there, there are more stand-up paddleboarders than there are boaters during an hour of traffic. I went out a few weekends ago and I counted 100 in the hour I was out there. This is more on the Seaside Lagoon to show you how they impacted the park. This shows the Seaside Lagoon today, and you can see this purple boundary is the formal boundary of the park. This shows the purple boundary of the park overlaid on what they plan to do. And what you can see is, in order to make their road, they pave right over a big chunk of this. Then they plop in 5 concession stands. They've got over 100 leash spaces in this mall, and yet they felt like they had to put 5 more right on a public park so they could serve the people going to the park. Today, well, you can see the small boat launch goes away, so you'd have to park over here or in one of these spaces and haul your stuff through the shopping area. There's shopping here, shopping over here. You'd have to haul through the shopping area, drop your stuff off here, and then find parking, and then go into the water. And at the highest of tides, you can see the beach shrinks to almost nothing. This is a +6, that's a pretty high tide, and this is the normal tide. So you can see, even if you went down there to take your kids, you guys constantly have to be moving your towel, and when you get up to the highest tides, it's going to get pretty narrow. Today, I got the numbers from the city. While the Seaside Lagoon is open, about over 660 people on average use that pool per day. So there's no way this is going to accommodate that many people in this much smaller park. And then this was another surprise we got with the draft EIR. This shows the slip configuration today. All of a sudden, out of the blue, they said, well, we may only build half of them back. And of course, they said no significant impact if you do that, because there happens to be 50 other slips open somewhere else in the harbor. Well, you know, when I first got a boat, I tried to get in King Harbor, and it was an indefinite waiting list. And after 10 years, I finally made it to the top. We just are coming out of a recession, so yeah, there's some empty boat slips. But as the economy recovers, boat slips are going to become tight again. And to wave off that this is no impact it's laughable. Parking impacts today. There's 2,192 total parking places. They're adding all this development, and all we get out of it is 2,363 parking places. That's why they've built such a huge parking structure, 261,000 square feet, 4 levels, 45 feet high. So you can see we gained 171 parking places. If you look at it, 140% growth in commercial development and only an 8% growth in parking traffic. And what they didn't calculate in their demand was any of those SUPers or users of the Seaside Lagoon. So it's actually worse than what they show in the EIR. But of course, this is no significant impact. So that's the draft EIR in a real short, quick and dirty. There's all sorts of environmental stuff they don't really address, like blue herons and some other species of fish that have been spotted in our harbor that are pretty rare. But there's also, if you read it and you actually digest it, it's full of flaws. These are just some of the more blatant ones. So what happens next? There's one more city meeting on January 9th at 9 a.m. at the Crown Plaza across the street here. And the public comment period ends on the 19th at 5:30. They will then generate responses to those questions, and they will release a final EIR and comment resolution Every comment that comes in that's substantive and has something to do with an impact, they have to respond to. They did this before in Heart of the City, and like I said, the traffic's too, is understated, and they said noted. So that was their formal response. Then it'll go to the Harbor Commission for approval, and if somebody appeals it, then the City Council would approve the EIR, and then they have to do entitlements approvals, and that's the final step where Center Cal finally gets the authority to start doing things to build on the land. And once you have that, affecting them developing this is going to be very difficult because they're going to claim it's a money hit to them because they have entitlements. So if we have to act before we have entitlements fully approved, or we have to attack the approval of the entitlements. And then Coastal Commission has to do some approvals. Anything that's west of what they call the historic tide line, high tide line, has to be approved by them. So this development over the top of the Seaside Lagoon, they'd have to say something about, or they'd have a say in it. And if we appeal anything the city does in the area, they get the chance to weigh in on it. Yes, ma'am.
Is there any communication with the Coastal Commission yet?
Not yet. Not yet. I intend, when I come up, I'm generating a book of my response to this thing. I intend to send it to the Coastal Commission and every other party, that government agency that's set to respond to this. But that is a tactic we should hit very, very soon, is start sitting down with the local Coastal Commission staff in Long Beach and really starting to paint why the people of Redondo are against this.
Do most people know what the Coastal Commission is and is not?
Everybody know the Coastal Commission? Mm-hmm. Anybody not?
Well, I mean, what can they do for us?
Well, the Coastal Commission, they have a say in everything that goes on in what's called the coastal zone. And for us, that's from PCH to the waterfront. So what they've done is they've approved, the city put out the zoning that we voted on in Measure G, and they put it in what they call their local coastal plan. And the Coastal Commission has said, yay, barely, that's acceptable to us. They put 18 conditions on it, which the city folded into the zoning. And now what that does is give the city the authority to grant development permits, except in the Tidelands area.
So Measure G allowed for 400,000 additional square feet?
Yes.
So are they still with this 523,000 square feet? Are they staying within the limit of what they're entitled to?
The city says they are because the city is saying you don't count parking structures as development. And there's a technical reason for that. If you ever look up the definition of floor area ratio, which is another building term, that says how dense you can build something on a plot of land. They don't count parking in that. But if you look at Measure G zoning, there's never a reference to gross square foot as excluding parking. So, certainly one of the tacks we're taking is that they've exceeded the cap that was set in Measure G. And it's actually worse than that because they built Shade Hotel took up some of the cap, and so did the new Harbor Patrol building. So it's worse than that.
And then what's going to happen when AES wants to also develop?
AES isn't in that 400,000 square foot cap, but there's a thing in SEQA where you're supposed to analyze what they call cumulative impact. So other projects that are going to go on in the area should be assessed in your EIR. And they haven't assessed any cumulative impacts. In fact, we know Shade's about to go, they build it, it's about to go live. They haven't even included the traffic impact of Shade Hotel in the analysis. Yes, ma'am.
Can I give a better definition of the Coastal Commission?
Sure.
The Coastal Commission is two entities. The Coastal Commission is educated scholars who understand the earth up. The Coastal Commissioners are elected and appointed officials. And they are usually, if they're not current officials, the appointed officials were heavy donors to political entities or way up high in their campaigns. So the Coastal Commission, educated scholars who have ground knowledge of how the environment works, how water flows, how earth and vegetation and flora and fauna all co-sync into one entity, they can recommend to the commissioners, we don't like this project, we don't want to approve it, now what are you going to do? And the Coastal Commissioners can trot off down the road and say, we approve it. Okay, so you have to be aware that the commission is the educated scholars who could say no, the commissioners could do is say, darn well pleased, because they have big people they have to give back that they want. You know, that kind of like the big donors. They have to say, yes, we want this. Yes, you can have your development. And so a lot of people don't realize that. So you have to know who the players are. Coastal Commission, somewhat okay. Commissioners, elected and appointed officials that usually go the opposite way from what the commission has recommended.
In fact, Bill Brand was interviewed to be a coastal commissioner, and because one of the questions he got asked, if I called you, you know, right before a vote and said, I'd like you to vote this way, would you vote that way? And Bill said, I'd consider it, but I'd have to look at the facts, and obviously he didn't get picked.
So I'm a former staffer for an elected official, and so I will completely adhere to that, and you're right, and they tend to be heavy players in the community, people that can make things happen behind closed doors and out in the public too. So you're right, they are. But, you know, it can work to our favor too. I mean, ours is Robert Durango, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that.
Yeah. But one thing,
Big power.
we've been calling the Coastal Commission since Heart of the City. For the city of Redondo and local things that we've watched, they rarely say outright no. They just say, here's the conditions you have to add for us to approve it, which oftentimes aren't that substantive. Sometimes they will, you know, like if you follow the SeaWorld one, that killed their whole project. But typically, you know, the ones they packed in here were very lightweight. Like you can't trim trees if there's a heron in it and things like that. You have to put in the boat ramp. That was a pretty substantive one. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure, Jim. I'm trying to understand the significant impact thing. So what's the basis for determining what's an impact and what's not? Is it quantitative, qualitative? And based upon what they decide, is there some method for determining what really is and what isn't?
It depends on the criteria. For air pollution, there's a specific criteria. For traffic, the city has set up specific criteria. For views, the city hasn't set any specific criteria. For impact on recreational uses, there's no specific criteria. So it depends, and you can read in there, they'll tell you what the threshold of significance is.
Okay.
And if there's not one, they'll tell you that too. And you know, even where there was one, they fudged the data so that it would look like it's not. So there's only two significant unmitigable impacts. One is noise, and I forget what the second is. Pardon? Tsunami, yeah. So, you know, it's lip service if you've ever, I did EIRs in the Air Force, I would have been court-martialed if I approved the same way.
Well, that's the thing I'm wondering, right? It's like, I mean, you can look at what the criteria is, and it seems like you can challenge that, say, like you said, like the traffic was, you know, it's flawed analysis, right?
Yeah,
So now,
certainly.
who determines whether it's flawed or not, right? We can go ahead and actually appeal this. Who's going to say, oh, you're right, this is flawed?
Well, the council does. Well, first off, the Harbor Commission does. Then the council does. Then if we appeal it to the Coastal Commission, they do. And if we take it to a court of law, a judge does.
Got it. Okay, so there is actually someone who can be based upon logic and
Yes. But there is no zoning or CEQA police out there. If the city violates it, it's up to us as citizens to take action.
Right, but we have recourses. I guess what I'm poking at here.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
The time. So after January 19th, if we were to do nothing, when do you figure the entitlements approval would happen?
I think they were saying that it would be April, May, but it's going to be hard. I think there's going to be substantive comments, and if they really pay attention to them, I think it's going to be hard for them to come back that quickly. But I know they're listening, so they're probably already cooking up their story on stuff we brought up in the meetings. So it can come back very quickly, and then we'll have to see what the Harbor Commission does.
If we were to initiate a lawsuit, would that stop this process?
No, you
So they're
can't.
just going to keep going.
I don't want to go too long because there are other people who want to brief, but you can't, at this stage of the game, there's nothing to sue about. You don't have a reason to sue until the city does a formal and final action, and then we have standing to sue. So you can't sue on something where they, look, you said there's no significant impacts, and they're like, well, we would have fixed that by the time we did our final vote. So you got to wait till they take their final action, and then you have limited time where you can do referendums, file lawsuits, and things like that, and it's all spelled out in CEQA and the city charter on those timelines. So that's why it's critical. If we're anticipating action, which we are, you got to have, you know, our war chest team ready to go and ready to pull out the instant the city council does their final approval, because for CEQA, an appeal or lawsuit has to happen within 30 days of their action. And that's calendar days, that's not work days. And if you're going to referendum it, you got 30 days. So that's 30 days to write your referendum, get it to the city, and then start collecting signatures, you basically have 3 weekends to get that done. And we need 4,500 signatures right now based on the last vote to pass a referendum. And if you've ever done one, you actually have to collect about a third more than that, because people will say, oh, I'm registered and they're not, or they'll put the wrong address, or they'll do something wrong. They can't recognize their signature or something like that.
Do you have a timeline? Give a timeline and a strategy to take us to where we need to go to get this a referendum?
Well, until we know when the final actions are, you can't lay out a timeline. So we can't even write the referendum until we get the actual wording of the thing that we're referenduming. So we can be all ready to go, but we can't actually pull the trigger on it until they take an action.
I will tell you this, we are ready to do something. How about that? What it exactly is a little still vague, it's vague and unclear because we have to figure out.
Well, what we're targeting from an education perspective and the costs that we've seen before in referendums, and referendums are cheaper than initiatives and much cheaper than a secret lawsuit, is we would need about a $15,000 war chest by the time the city makes their final decision. So we are going to start pushing for donations so that we can be prepared for that. Yes, sir.
What's the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal to reduce the size? Is the ultimate goal to stop the project? Is the ultimate goal to something else? I think goal setting will be important for determining what your referendum is going to be.
Well, the referendum is just a no. An initiative tells you what. So an initiative just says, what the city just passed, the residents don't agree with, so stop. Now, for an initiative, then you have to actually set the zoning. Now, the goal, I think, of most reasonable people is to revitalize the harbor without supersizing it. That's kind of been our motto. But the problem is, all of us have played this game. I mean, I went to 7 of the 8 Center Cal things. I went to the city scoping meeting. And I've been playing this since part of the city back in 2000. Once we get to this stage, the city so far has never throttled back development at this stage of the game, after this stage of the game. And it's only been resident action that stopped it. Now, certainly you're welcome to call your councilman, call your commissioners and say this is horrendous. And who knows, maybe with the new council in there, they'll actually do something. But so far, we've been through how many city councils since 2000, and everyone, once they got to this stage, has voted to approve the EIR without throttling back the development.
So what do we do from now until January 19th? We
draft
our
response
as to why we disagree that these are not a significant impact.
That's right. You have to hit the impacts and say why you think their finding of no significant impact is flawed.
Right, but then how do you argue their traffic thing is not a significant impact?
I'm going to write up a big paper on that.
So there's 2 things. In your packet, we actually outlined how to write a nice response to kind of guide you. It is in the back of my mind to form a workshop so that people can help you guys, people that have specific concerns, like some people have recreational concerns, some people have voting concerns. So that's in the back of my mind. It's really just a capacity issue. We're like 4 people that work full time and we have this part-time job. So we're trying to, I'm working on that. So in the back of my mind. So I'm going to move on to the next speaker.
Yeah.
And we're after everything's done, we're going to stick around, and we are always happy to answer questions. So even if you don't get a question in right now, you can always talk to us afterwards or email us. But just in the interest of time, and I know you guys your time, I'm going to have Nils, and he's going to talk about the revitalization of the San Pedro waterfront and their kind of opportunity and what they're engaging in right now, just so you guys can kind of get some idea of what other waterfronts are doing and how they're being really engaging. I don't know if many of you guys are on Facebook, but I'm friends with Mayor Garcia on Facebook, and one of the things he did, it's just a very, very little thing that I noticed, and he actually asked people what they'd like to see on there. And I was just going through some of the comments. I was actually pleasantly surprised to see how many people wanted like an open air concert hall, a park, and how much people wanted open space. It's really interesting to see that. But and also a reminder to me that how in that city, or it's not San Pedro, but Long Beach, they're doing a big revitalization too, how they're really seeking community input. So I will turn it over to Nils.
Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Nils. I spoke last time regarding lifestyle. lifestyle harbor. What we do here in South Bay is a lifestyle, you know, bike paths, fishing, why we go down to the harbor, what's important down to the harbor. And it was really interesting to see what they're planning on doing, i.e. shrinking down Seaside Lagoon down to essentially nothing. Forcing you to park in a huge parking garage, walk across streets and bike paths and more retail. Set it up essentially like a casino does in Vegas. San Pedro Waterfront has a very special part in me because I am a San Pedro native, born and raised in Pedro, lived there for a very long time, love the town. And this waterfront has been built many years ago, and they've been working really hard on this. And I thought it was quite funny in the beginning of the center cal video that they immediately brought up the red car line. And what do we see right here? Red car line, red car line. They brought up a lot of other aspects along with it. There will be no red car line down here. There will be no pool down here. But all those things they talk about are in the San Pedro waterfront pretty much.
Not anymore.
What's not anymore? Red car, right? Unfortunately, right? So just to give you a quick overview of where the San Pedro waterfront is. It's right down here in this little area right here. They want to develop majorly and we're intensely right now. It's called Ports of Call. Right here, the cruise ships all line up. The USS Iowa is right here, which is a major draw. Let's see, right over here, they want to put a cruise ship terminal in. They have the SS Lane is right here. They want to move that to right in here again. It used to be right in here near the harbor. This is Cabrillo Beach right in here, excuse me, right here. This is where the boat launch ramp is, as well as the inside harbor. We'll go over that in a minute. This is a large park right here. We'll get to that in a minute. But basically what they're talking about revitalizing over about a 20-year period, spending about $1.2 billion, which was their original plan about 7-8 years ago. We'll get into that. Basically revitalize essentially from right here all the way down to Cabrillo Beach, right down here. About 400 acres, I want to say, roughly. And if you can tell quite easily, here you have 2 bridges. There's the 110 freeway, obviously PCH. So you have major access points from freeways going directly down into the harbor. Okay, this is a huge waterfront complex that they want to redevelop, a huge project. It's actually, you're going to see, it's actually a smaller project than what they're trying to do here. And this is all the major access that they have. And of course, we're right here in our little waterfront here, and look how far away we are from the 405 freeway. That's important to notice. You know, if you look over the EIR, they look at the major access points. One's going down Hawthorne Boulevard, one's going down Artesia. That's how they expect everyone to get there from the 405. That's what they study. So here's a little bit more in detail. Now, they took a phased approach. A lot of this stuff is done already. Or some of this stuff is done, I should say, already. Right now, what they're concentrating on is primarily this area right here in the black and yellow. Ports of Call Village is right in here. They already built this. They already built this in here. This is the cruise ship terminal, huge parking lot. If you go by, you'll see a huge water fountain display right in here. It's like a Las Vegas style water fountain, absolutely gorgeous. The red car line starts right up in here and goes yourself all the way down in here. And these are 2 old warehouses that they rebuilt, built in the 1940s. Big old park right in here. This massive marina right here, on this side I should say, this whole marina right here is all brand new. All brand new, okay? I mean, this is gorgeous. You go down this road right here, it's absolutely gorgeous. They want to put in a cruise ship terminal right here. They want to bring in Disney, but they haven't quite said yet who. They don't know yet. SS Lane is right here. They want to move her back into right here. They said they possibly back over here. And then, of course, the Iowa is right here. This they want to redevelop in the coming features, the coming time. We'll get to this in a second. Remember this area. This is 20 acres of land right here. Remember this, very important. Again, this red car line ends up here. They also want to extend it possibly all the way to over here. Here is the Cabrillo Beach portion. Remember last time I spoke about the sand and the bad water quality? It gets horrible bad water quality. That's where that area is. The boat launch ramp is right here. You can see there's a nice separation of area. We'll go over that in a minute. Here is the break wall, and here's a little fishing pier down here. So you can see it's a huge waterfront, lots of activity going on down there. And the residents, most importantly, are clamoring for this to happen. San Pedro has been a redheaded stepchild, so to speak, of LA City, and they haven't gotten any money from LA City, and they're actually losing support from LA City because of LA Live in downtown. They're essentially fighting over tourists and attractions and so on and so forth. And yes, and as you can tell, right here again, 110 freeway, we're right in downtown or the harbor. So, and of course, they're fighting with Long Beach, which we'll see in a second. Okay, so this is important. What I said to you earlier, remember the 20 acres I talked about? There used to be an oil tank farm there. Okay, 20 acres of land with a huge oil tank farm. There was a huge explosion in 1976, and ever since 1976, the residents down there are trying to get rid of that oil farm. They eventually succeeded. It was owned by Unocal, and this is what it is today. Look at that. This is these two warehouses right here. There's a brewery going in here, and there's kind of a craft fair place in there now. Eventually, they want to take the red car line through here or back through here and then go to Cabrillo Beach. But you know, there's no reason why something like this can't happen in other cities, like maybe AES or something. So this is, I'm not going to read this. You guys can read this exactly, but I'll just point out to you the most important parts. New public plazas, 27 acres of new public open space does not include the 20 acres of the oil farm. Okay, that's important to note. If you look at this, this is very important right here, a wide variety of transportation options and improvements. They're doing the infrastructure first before they do everything else, right? It's a big project. They're doing things a little bit smarter. They're a phased approach. Now, currently, 150,000 square feet is down at Ports of Call, and they want to increase it up to 300,000 square feet. It says somewhere right here, 150 to 300,000 square feet additional square foot as by the San Pedro Chamber of Commerce. They want to get a conference center. I don't know if anyone heard that before. Maybe a different location down here in the harbor, AES, year-round. Let's see. In 2009, they wanted to spend $220 million. I don't know if any of you guys were at the spectacle that we call the draft environmental impact public comment period from last week, but now the number that they're talking about is $400 million, according to the lawyer that stood up and spoke. Very important quote right here. They're limiting it now at 150,000 square feet. They're bringing it down, right? So now 150,000 square feet. If I have it here, no, I don't. Oh, here it is, right here. $100 million. You're going to spend $100 million on 150,000 square feet, right? We're spending $300 to $400 million on something that's double that size.
Well, go back one. Look at this. I mean, this is something we've advocated for a long time.
Oh,
Rather than just turn it over to the developer, these guys are actually talking to National Geo about making something that's actually a waterfront attraction for education and stuff like that. It's not retail, that's not restaurants, that's a true use of the waterfront and what the waterfront is there for. And we just want to, we want to hide the waterfront behind a wall of development out here. It's disgusting that San Pedro can have the vision to do something like this in our little city. All we want to do is pack in shops and restaurants.
And if you look right back here, all these different draws that they have a cruise ship terminal here. They've got the SS Lane. They've got the marina down there. They've got the beach over there. They've got Ports of Call. They've got these parks. They've got the warehouses here that they redid. They've got the USS Iowa. It's exactly like Jim said. They have many other things other than just retail. They have a conference center they want to build. So here's the articles you can get these things from. Data Degree is a great resource. There's a great article in LA Times. There's a ton of San Pedro websites that you can go to. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. Does that National Geographic reference there take into account the fact that Murdoch just bought it and gutted it?
I have no idea. They're still talking about that. I got this article from this past October. So they're still talking to National Geographic. And again, the point of this is that they want to get something down there other than just retail, other than just what they have right now. Yeah.
If you scroll back a couple of sections, creating an active public waterfront.
Yes,
So they set the goal right at the top.
right.
And I would just want to urge you, as we move forward, that language is important language for all
That's
of
a good point.
us.
Yeah.
For all of us.
Yeah.
This is what we want.
This
We
is what
want
we
an
want.
active public waterfront, and we want to set it clearly
Right.
at the top.
Exactly.
But they will say they are having waterfront. They're saying you'll be able to drink your wine in your restaurant looking out over the harbor.
But that's not active. That's passive.
No, they're saying it's
This
active
is-
because more people are going down there to drink. So we've got to include the recreational or water dependent uses.
Yes, that's right. Right.
This is important too, tie-up space for hovercraft. I don't know if you guys own boats, but if you ever go down to Newport Beach back there, you can actually bring your boat in, tie it up to a dock, walk up to the restaurants in Long Beach as well, have a drink, have some restaurant food, go do your entertaining, get back on your boat, and head back. I've done that. I've done that many times. From Long Beach, left out of Cabrillo Beach, literally left out of Cabrillo Beach, and then went all the way to Long Beach to wherever else. It's a ton of fun. Yeah, watch how much you drink. So, this is so you guys know what San Pedro is like at 4:30 in the afternoon on a Sunday, the day after what's it called, Halloween. Okay, this is 4:30 on a Sunday, the day after Halloween. Look how this. And this is these two are two different halls right here. They have about 3 or 4 different halls down there. Okay. This is just normal for them. Normal. For those people down there. I don't know if any of you guys went to the EIR meeting this last week, but the term "those people" came up. That's those people right there. Yes.
Is that like restaurant eating or what are they doing?
That's like it's basically like restaurant eating. So what you do is you go in these the seafood. It's just like quality seafood. You go in there and you see like the food that's
And you point to it.
point. Yeah, they say I want it this way, done that way. Yep, exactly. And they have about 4 or 5 of these things down there, and they're huge and they're packed. There's music, there's bands going on. They have things during the summer. So that's San Pedro for you. We'll go over some other stuff. Martin, I think you're next. Yeah. Question?
You know, I appreciate your presentation, but I don't understand it in what we're trying to do here.
Because
San Pedro's a hell of a lot bigger than Redondo Beach,
right.
right? Am I right?
Well,
I think it is.
You're right. The point is it's a lot bigger, but they're only doing 150,000 square feet of development down there.
No, I get
Compared to our stuff, right? And they're having active vision. They're separating things out. They're taking things. It's not just retail, office space.
The point of the story is that there's many opportunities along the waterfront up and down the coast to develop. But you see a much larger space to develop, and look, they only developed 150,000 square
Right.
feet. But yet,
Jim has brought that up before with
But yeah, we have
parking space,
ours.
and they can park, they have a place to park.
well, aside from
I remember him
just
saying
the
that.
sheer vision, I think is important. It's also important to understand other projects. So, as you go and we all live in the South Bay, we travel and you go, and I've taken a whole new appreciation for other harbors as I go, and you really take great appreciation for these other projects and other visions. So
I think the real point is exactly what Sheila brought up is, they're building to focus on the waterfront for water uses. We're focused on building
on
a
retail.
retail restaurant development that happens to be on a waterfront.
And although San Pedro is such a much larger area to work with, they're only looking at developing 150,000 square feet.
And we'll have
We
over a million.
such, like a tenth of the area and wanting to develop 500.
When Fred Brogan gave all his trying to con us into all this, he mentioned Boston, Seattle, San Francisco. And I'm sitting there like, I'm from Boston, I've been to San Francisco, I've been to Seattle, and he mentioned some other places. Those are major cities.
Yeah.
So what I don't understand, I'm so confused with all this. It's maddening.
Yes.
They're idiots.
Let's get the Martin.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Okay, folks, so my name is Martin Holmes, and a little bit of background. I'm an MIT aerospace engineer, currently working with the Air Force. I've been involved with government, student government, and whatever throughout my life. So a little bit of background. My presentation is on follow the money. So basically, these are some of the questions I hope to hit on or address throughout this presentation. What the development may end up meaning for local businesses and the businesses that are ultimately able to move in here. So that's the point of this presentation. One of the big things to take away is that CenterCal is not a charity, right? They're a for-profit company. They need to make profit. Their profit is mostly coming from rent that they get from the tenants that are there. And they're not giving money to the city. They're not donating anything. And they need to be financially viable. If they're not, you're going to have shuttered businesses. You're going to have turnover of businesses, and you're going to wind up with some pretty low-end vacant lots, which may be reminiscent of what we have down on the pier today. So right here on this side, this is, Mills just went over ports of call down in San Pedro. This is their financial analysis. So I'm going to comb through a bit of this just to point out some similarities or differences, okay? So what can you learn from that right there at the top? So they're envisioning San Pedro being a regional destination with restaurants, visitor center, boutique hotel, market, all kinds of things that draw people in. So that's kind of similar to what we're envisioning here. So what did the financial report say about this original concept? Well, the initial plan, they said it was not financially feasible. So they've had to resize it and go down, and that's what Nils is talking about when he's talking about taking the size of the project down and looking at different ways to finance the project. And one of the reasons it was not financially feasible was because of the large infrastructure cost. $220 million of infrastructure. So they're going through a lot of work and reimagining that to figure out how they can make it work. Right here at CenterCal, we're talking about between 30 million to just do the parking structures and up to 100 million to get the whole infrastructure total reconfigured to meet the EIR plan. So one of the things you know here is that the infrastructure, as you can see, is driving down the profitability. Without the infrastructure, they're at maybe about 12% return, but with that infrastructure, they're down to 6.1. So it's really not becoming financially feasible. That same type of hit is going to occur here. And with a smaller development, if you were to take a smaller development in San Pedro or a smaller development here, you see that the percentage of return is going to go down because the development may be smaller, but the infrastructure is the same. You still got to pay for that. This I just thought was interesting. This is basically the International Council of Shopping Centers defining what a lifestyle center is. And a lifestyle center is what they're envisioning right here on the waterfront. So their definition is an upscale national chain specialty stores with dining and entertainment in an outdoor setting, typically between 150 and 500,000 square feet. But if you look at the size, you notice that it could also be confused for either a power center or a regional mall. And in any case, you're talking about national chains. So how does that compare to our waterfront? We have a $300 million development here. Ports of Call is stating that you need a 15% return on investment each year for a financially viable, large, risky development. And that's kind of obvious. You need both the developer and the investor to make a profit, and that profit needs to beat inflation and alternative investments, other things they could be doing with that money. But a bad return is maybe about 10%. You can find that in the ports of call analysis, and you can also see that the way CenterCal has structured their deal, if they make less than 10% return a year, they don't pay any rent to the city. That's kind of suggesting that that's the point of minimal economic return. That's kind of their tipping point. So what does 15% look like? 300 million, 15% divided by the square feet, divided by 12 months. you need to average. You know, some things are going to be lower, some are higher, but you need to average $7.16 per square foot per month. To be kind of that tipping point, 10%, a bad financial investment, you need $4.77 a square foot per month. So let's see how that compares. Typically, a business should pay about 5% of their sales as rent. That should be the rent for a business. So here are the two figures we just calculated, and here are some other figures you could look at from that financial analysis in Portugal. So LA retail premium waterfront, $34. South Bay, $226. Barney's Beanery, prime location right on the pier, $325. You know, is fancier paint and nicer amenities going to make the value of that significantly more? Is Barney's Beanery going to pay significantly more and become significantly more valuable because they have nice paint and a fancy waterfront? Santa Monica, $5, and 3rd Street Promenade, $7. So compare that to these numbers up here. Minimal economic success, $4.77. That's kind of like Santa Monica Place. Success, $7.16. That's even higher than 3rd Street Promenade. That's the level of success that these businesses need to achieve to make it economically viable for both the business and Center Cal. So could it be lower? Of course. But your investment criteria is going to stay the same. Success is going to stay the same on the average. So what would make it lower? Well, if you have a really successful hotel or theater, maybe you charge the hotel more than $7.16, and then the businesses can pay less. But the theater, we all know, is risky, and a hotel is a relatively small boutique hotel. So even charging, I don't know, $10 a square foot, $12 a square foot, and that hotel, that's not going to create a whole lot of leeway for the rest of the average across this whole development to go down. It's still going to be pretty high. So what else could you do? You could maybe give a preference to existing businesses over new businesses. So your existing businesses are maybe paying a little lower rent. What does that mean to all the new businesses, right? So let's say Tony's and Quality Seafood and everyone else, they're not going to pay $7. So let's put them at $4, right? Well, everyone else who moves in there is going to have to pay a lot more than $7 to make the average $7. So who's going to be able to afford more than that? You're not going to get more local businesses who are paying the premium to subsidize the local businesses that are there. You're going to get, chains and national brands. Could you do a creative rent structure? Could you say, hey, existing business, you only have to pay a certain percentage of your sales. That'll get by for a while. That'll work for a while. But ultimately, Center Cal still needs to collect the rent, right? Whether they're collecting a percentage of the rent or a fixed amount of the rent, they can go with a sales figure. But if that sales figure is too low, and if the existing business isn't selling enough, and therefore they're not paying enough, eventually they're going to get booted out. Eventually they're not going to meet the criteria that Center Cal needs to be profitable. So, Center Cal may have good intentions here, and they probably do, right? All things being equal, of course, they would want a local business over some chain or national brand. But realize, first chart, they are a for-profit company. They're not a charity, right? So look at creative with rents. They'll come up with some solutions that keep existing businesses here, at least in the short term. But eventually, if Center Cal is not profitable, those good intentions will disappear. So the real question here is, can the community, can the tourists spend enough money to pay sales to all the businesses that are down there so that they become profitable enough to pay Center Cal the rent that they need to be profitable? And if they can't, if the community cannot support it, what you have is 524,000 square feet of bad development instead of 220,000 square feet of that development. Now, the businesses that are there today would probably be the loudest opponents of this plan if they did not think they might be included in the plan, right? If they knew Senator Cal's coming in and, hey, business, you have no chance of being here, of course they would fight. But when you dangle a carrot there, hey, business, you might have retail space in our new development, of course they're going to be on board. But which businesses have come forward and said, I have a lease, I have a guarantee, I have a legally binding document saying that I'm in that Senator Cal plan? I haven't heard of any. Some support it, but has anyone said, I am guaranteed a spot there? I haven't heard it. And so what's going to happen, I think, is that we'll treat the local businesses fair, and we'll try to get them a spot, but ultimately, this is a money thing. It's driven by money. It's a corporation, they need their profit. And so if we cannot support the local businesses there, they're going to get the boot, and they're going to get beat for it. Unless you have it in legal writing, it's not going to happen. So that's that presentation.
You want to take it?
Oh,
I have a question. So how does this, how do you link that up with this 10% profit? If they don't get a 10% profit, as determined by them, right? Then the city doesn't get any rent. So how does that rent to the, what's the percentage of their income that they receive from their rent? What percentage goes to the city? How is that calculated? And so let me finish. Doesn't that constitute a loss, an ultimate loss to the city because they're not getting the 10%? They're not getting any rent.
Yeah.
So how do we calculate that loss?
I'm not aware. I haven't seen the financial structure between Senator Cal and the city. I don't know if it's been made public. I don't know if it's still in the brainstorming phase. I mean, eventually you have the entitlements, which is the formal agreement between the city and Senator Cal. That hasn't come out yet. So I'm not sure that anyone can specifically look at it and say we're getting X percent or not. But what we do know is that today the city is profitable. The city is pulling in revenue from the businesses down there, and it's more than it's costing the city. And so that goes away. And like you said, if it were to go to Senator Cal, and if Senator Cal were to make less than 10%, then the city doesn't get any revenue. So we lose that existing revenue stream, plus the revenue stream from the parking structures, which is around 1.6 million, 1.8 million a year.
So I want to provide a counter argument because I think it's really important to educate everyone in the room. So when I asked what is the reason of why we're doing this creative kind of structure with Senator Cal and why is it they get free rent for 99 years? The response back, and I think it's important that you guys know everything, so I want to share it with you. The response to them was because Senator Cal is taking a risk on us, we're taking a risk on them. So it's like this kind of mutually exclusive agreement. That's just like a pure fact of what they have shared with me, and I just think it's fair and worth sharing with you that is part of the reason why the city entered it. It wasn't just kind of selfish motive, because they felt that it was a mutual risk.
The city has a fiscal analysis, and their agreement, they don't have a formal lease agreement with Senator Cal yet. They won't get to that till the CIR section's done. But the exclusive negotiating agreement, which is a non-binding agreement they have right now, states, and I haven't read it in a while, but I believe it's after they make 10%, the city gets 25% of every dollar over their 10%. Now they get to take out reinvestment. So any prudent business person is going to say, I reinvested in it and I didn't make anything over 10%. But the other thing is the city will make money if the businesses are successful. We get a percentage of the sales tax. So we will get some revenue that way. And right now the city analysis shows a plus something like $3 million a year after the first several years of, we have a little bit of negative and then start coming up to $3 to $5 million per year.
That is a very flaky, it's a very flaky analysis. I mean, there's no details behind it, but that's what they're operating off.
That's
of.
what
It
we
came
get,
from-
like a quarter
It came from
percent
Cosmoc and
sales tax?
Associates.
Yeah, but the hotel tax, I mean, that goes to the city as well.
That's what I just said, the
Retail
TMT and the retail tax are going to the city. Yes, sir.
We'll generate
To
funds.
support your analysis, Martin, the AECom analysis indicated that they wanted to obtain about $3.50 to $3.83 for office space, and anywhere from $7 to $11 for retail space. Where the extra number comes in is that those leases will be full-service gross leases, which means that on top of the rent that you pay CAM or common area maintenance charges and other charges associated with it. So your rent isn't actually, say, $3.50, it might be as much as $4 or $5 when you consider the full-service gross.
It's like a homeowners association.
But they're also very clever because they know the average person reading that is not able to put all that together.
The other component, I think, that I don't know if it's been addressed or raised is, are they going to charge the merchants in the retail shops for parking? Now, our offices are in El Segundo, and I pay a ridiculous amount of money each month just to park for myself and my staff. So there's another component of revenue that may not have yet been addressed in the overall plan. So in addition to the $3.50 for an office plus CAM charges, full service gross, on top of that, you might pay for 3 parking spots for all of your employees, or 4 or 5, whatever it is.
Look up, I think it's on the one Facebook site. There's a mall that Senator Cal built in Tualatin, Oregon. And there's a very poignant post that's an op-ed piece by some of the residents that are lamenting all their mom and pops are being forced out. It's in your handout. Are being forced out because their rents went up, and they went up as construction went on. And they're lamenting these residents are saying we should have done more to protect our mom and pops, but it was too late. And Senator Cal, the paper let Senator Cal respond. They said, well, you know, it's because the shoppers didn't visit them, and you know, it's business basically. So that's what we can expect to see here. And I've talked to several of the business owners. They're of course not going to come out and bite the hand that's going to feed them. So they're not going to say anything to make Senator Cal mad. But the ones I've talked to so far have nothing in writing that says where they're going to be, how much their rent's going to be, for what the term is. And the other piece to go away with is the city tried to make Senator Cal agree to stay with the project for X number 5 or 10 years after they build it. And Senator Cal refused to sign an agreement like that. So they can sell it off and just leave.
So to add to that real quick regarding the local businesses, Senator Cal is a developer. They come in kind of as a, they already know who they're bringing in, so to speak, right? They've done this before. It's not their first rodeo. We're going to see the next couple of weeks, especially at our next meeting. We're going to be visiting some other locations of theirs, and we're going to be talking to some of their people, and we're going to have some great interviews. We already know some things that are coming up. So next meeting, we're going to have some great videos and great interviews of their other locations and talking to some of their other renters and so on and so forth, and people that they've worked with. And you're going to be very surprised to hear a lot of the things that they've said in the beginning, and now a lot of things that has happened directly afterwards, and now a few years later. Okay, so that's going to be very important.
The gentleman in the very back.
Yeah, I'm actually, I'm very happy to see the financial analysis that made perfect sense. I'm a builder developer, and that makes total sense. Because that's one thing that I asked them for the brief when they presented it when I worked for Sherwood. Their Senator Cal folks came by. I said, well, we're going to have tax breaks. How much is this going to cost? They gave me a bunch of complicated answers. But one thing I did hear from a relative to the developer is that the city is paying for part of the infrastructure development costs. We're paying $20 million to take out the market structure, you understand?
$20 to $30 million.
Yeah, which I heard that. The other part is, he said that his family member told him correctly that even if they don't make that 10% make lower, the city would have to make up the difference for that. So not only is there a threshold where we don't get anything, if it's lower than that, we have to pay for it. If what you said is truly scary, they can walk away in 3 or 4 years and sell the thing.
Yep.
I mean, I guess it just shows that they really don't plan on being here long term.
Well, so there's a lot of complexity that obviously just slipped through in this analysis, right? I'm doing it back of the cup. Hey, let's get a baseline dollar figure, right? And from there, we can refine it. We can put in cost per square foot of hotel, theater, all of that fun. So I can make a better model. But I want to give you a comparison and compare it to the area, right? So I think it was hopefully a an informative talk about,
Yes.
at least on a conceptual level, what things might look like and what might happen.
And that's very good to balance it, because like I said, I think the biggest thing that the earlier presentation was is that access here, why is everyone gonna come all the way over here? And then the traffic, and there they use that loop, it makes total sense. So, I mean,
I want to take one more question, just in the interest of time, and so we can do our next presentation. So I want to make sure you guys get out of here on time, and then we'll take questions at the end. We'll stay as long as you want. Or actually, I can't commit to that because I have little ones. But they'll stay as long as you want. And I swear my emails on here, and I'm happy to be available. So it's nothing personal. So I'll take. Go ahead, Jess.
Couple things here, which all revolve around that slide that said Senator Cal may have good intentions. Yes, and the stork may bring babies too. If we're following the numbers correctly, this development would have to be approximately as successful as Santa Monica Place in order to make their 10% minimal accepted return. And since they want free rent on this for 30 years if they don't make that,
99.
the first thing is creative accounting. What gets stuffed into there, even if they're getting those grants, to bring the net profit down. But the second thing is, I suspect that this development will not be done by CenterCal. It'll be done by Redondo Waterfront LLC, subsidiary of CenterCal. And if the CenterCal will make money on the construction and on the front end financing, and then if the thing goes in the tank, Redondo Waterfront LLC will file Chapter 7 or Chapter 11 and hasta la vista, baby.
Right. So to add exactly what you're saying, again, CenterCal, we're going to bring this up next time in our next meeting, even go into greater depth. But CenterCal is not just a random developer. They're not even just a random mall developer. Okay, that's not. They specialize in properties that are either depressed or either bankrupt. That's their entire specialty. Okay, we have a waterfront that's depressed, even though it's making a ton of money for the city right now. It is depressed, so to speak. And so their entire business philosophy is around working with failing and failed businesses. So think about that for a minute. When they're going to invest now $400 million, argument's sake, they need to get that money out as fast as possible and in the best way possible. Okay, so think about it. We're gonna talk about that more at our January 6th meeting.
So, you know, after these meetings, I always hear opponents talking about how, you know, these things don't add up, and there's all this critique on things that we say. For the record, let it be said, we are for community activists, and it shouldn't be our job to even get to this depth. I mean, it's just by chance that we're for crazy educated people that have a lot of knowledge and a lot of ability to get this information, but what we should really be doing is empowering our city council to direct staff to get us some information. The fact that we're even drawing this up and spending this kind of time on this is also equally shocking, but let it be in the back of your minds, you know, like where's the leadership on city council to share this information with the public? And we should be sharing both sides evenly. And like I said, anytime I have a piece of information, I'll always tell you the other side, the opposing side. But let it be known, the four of us, we are staunchly against this project and have serious concerns about it. So if anyone is like confused where we stand, I want to. I feel like there was like a letter in the Easy Reader talking about like, you know, we have deep concerns with this project. So whenever we have a meeting, we are always talking about the impacts. Just so you know, so if you guys are confused where we stand. Now you know. So I'll turn over to Nils and he'll do this is our last presentation.
So last time we went over waterfront lifestyle and specifically went over what we do here in the Harbor Redondo. And this time I'm going to show you what other people have done other than San Pedro along the way. These are some of the harbors and waterfronts we are going to look at, and some of the aspects right here, parking, trailers, all that kind of good stuff, draws, amusement draws, why people show up. it's really important that when we talk about our waterfront, we got to realize what we have, what we need to cherish in our waterfront, what we want to bring out, what's important, right? First one, Marina Del Rey. This is known as Mother's Beach. There is a huge parking lot right here, surface level parking lot. There's covered area in case it rains. There's barbecues, so on and so forth. This massive area is a lot of beach sand area. There's handicap access. You can roll your beach chair into the water. There's a lot of, if you guys know a lot of Keela outriggers, there's a marina club. There's the same exact thing right here. There's an inn right here, Cheesecake Factory right here. Cheesecake Factory, we have one of those on the waterfront. We have another inn right here, Killer Shrimp, a major street, Washington right here, Admiralty Way, which everyone uses as a shortcut, and then this street here goes out to all the housing departments there. And this is one of the fingers that goes in right here. They actually get surprisingly decent water quality there. They don't really do bad water quality, unlike Redondo Beach Harbor. This is Cabrillo Beach, we talked about earlier. Now, if you notice, this is a large waterfront in terms of beach going activity. The boaters have a clear direction in and out. It's completely separated away from the swimmers who would be here. If you remember my last presentation, I talked about how all of the sand is fresh from Palm Springs. Fresh from Palm Springs because the water quality is so bad. They've had to literally dig out all of this sand, truck it over here, dump it off, and truck in all this sand from Palm Springs. That's no joke. They spent $1 million. There's also a lot of poles in here to keep birds flying, whatever. The point of it is they have a huge marine aquarium right here, started by John O'Keefe. Actually started here, and they built him a huge facility right here. Draws in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids a month, thousands of kids, really. There's the Cabrillo Beach Bathhouse, won a huge state award for restoration right in here. This is the outside. This is the county-operated facility out here. Parking, and there's a fishing pier down here. We'll go over down to parking spots for beach trailers. I actually physically went through and counted the marinas here that I couldn't get off online. You're going to be surprised. This is Dana Point. Again, huge waterfront for the little kiddos, the Mother's Beach, so to speak. Great pier right here. Ton of surface level parking. Great access right here. This major street right here. Street that comes through to the marina. It's in the back of the bay. They actually get surprisingly great water quality, unlike Redondo.
Before you leave there.
Yeah.
This area in San Pedro, this whole area down here. I'm sorry, Dana Point.
That's
Dana Point. Okay, Dana Point. This is where they keep their tall ships. They've got 2 tall ships down there. Now, this is set aside for education and institutional uses. Not getting money off it, not retail. There's a commercial that can go further up here. These bluffs are all conservation area. They can't build on there. And they specifically define areas that they could not block for views from the nearest road. So they define very broad view corridors. The whole harbor is 255 acres land and water. Their total development cap is 375,000 square feet. Over 200. Ours is 155 acres, and we're building, just on this part, over 1.1 million square feet. And so that gives you the comparison of the overdevelopment. The outer harbor, which starts up here, all green public park running all along the edge so that you can jog and see boats on both sides. We don't have anything like that.
Okay, so this is Santa Cruz. You guys are familiar with Santa Cruz? This is a huge pier right here. You can actually drive and park onto this pier. This is a amusement park right in here. Arcade area right in here. PCH, a major highway, comes in through back up here off the way. Their marina is over here. Again, this is a massively separated area. We have kind of the same thing here, but we're combining everything in Redondo, with our water in terms of we have all the same ideas, but we're throwing it all together in a smaller area. This Los Alamitos here is the boat launch ramp. They have their shopping area right here. It's like a Ralph's. And this is PCH. Oh, it's PCH up in. This is PCH right here, coming through here. So this is a lot of access, and this is, I forgot what street this is right here, but this is another major street, 4-lane highway. Long Beach Queensway. right down here is right over here is their boat launch ramp. Calian Express leaves out of here. Rainbow Harbor right here. As you know, the Long Beach Grand Prix comes through here. This is a massive waterfront. Again, everything is really well separated. Long Beach Aquarium is right, where's Long Beach Aquarium? Harbor right up here, right? Circle. No, not that one. I think it's this one. Yeah. Yeah, right here, all this stuff right here. So, again, everything is really well separated. There's a lot of transit here. Huge highways, 710 freeway ends up right up here and maybe a half a mile off to the north. It actually ends up going into 710 freeway. Like, it makes you think about what kind of structure. So, this is what they want to do right down here for us. Trailer parking. This is just, I could have done a million numbers, and I showed you exactly all of the stuff. I wanted to break it down as simple as possible for you. This is what CenterCal wants to do, okay? We currently actually have 67 parking spots right here, right in between these two right here. And we're going to go down to 20. Do you see anybody anywhere near that number? As a boater, I am appalled by this. When I keep my boat dry docked in my driveway, I hardly ever use Redondo, not just because the lift was broken for a year, but because it's expensive, it's hard to get spots here, and it's very time consuming. You go into a certain amount of time. I usually end up going to Marina Del Rey or Pedro. Again, I mean, this says it all right here. This is what it boils down to. 20 parking spots for trailers. That's a joke. That is a complete joke. I mean, that's offensive. To me, it's offensive as a boater.
How can that get passed?
Okay, this is really weird, actually. To be honest with you, this is weird because when they put in the ramp, they're going to get state grants for that to pay for it. And they actually get, the more parking spots they have, as what I understood from them, went to their meetings, the more parking spots they have, the more money they get.
Because you're proving accessibility.
Exactly, you're getting accessibility for all the boaters, right? So the fact that they're only putting in 20, they had, in the same parking lot, I think they had 30 to 60 parking spots for trailers, I want to say. But they've knocked it down to 20.
They had 40 in one version, but it was too tight of turns.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so they had up to 40 spots in there. But this shows you now who's going to pay for the rest of those work that needs to be done. Who's going to pay for it? CenterCal is going to pay for it, right? Or it comes out of the city budget, right? Well, somebody's got to make up for that money somehow. It's not free. It's not. It doesn't come with grant money. So that's basically in a nutshell other places that they've done. So I think we're done.
We're just gonna wrap
I got a
up.
quick one.
We want to get you guys out here to go out on that rate.
No, I'm staying.
Which one, yours?
Yeah.
I'm staying. Not going off now.
Don't worry, it's only like
It's only going sideways.
Sideways, right? Not coming out straight.
So, me again, I have one last quick presentation. Basically, we've heard some critiques that we're obstructionists, we don't want to do anything, all of that fun, right? So this is hitting on that. Basically, none of us here want to create roadblocks. We know the Pier needs redevelopment, we know AES needs redevelopment, and so we need to come up with an answer, right? And there's a way you can go about doing that. This is the SR-71. Awesome aircraft, very well integrated, right? Between the nozzles on the intake to the engines, just the shape of it, the airflow, all that aerodynamics. It works well together. It was designed as a single aircraft. This is the Comet 1, okay? So the Comet 1 was interesting. Obviously it crashed a lot, it killed a lot of people. But that was a development that was not integrated. That was not a well-thought single development. Instead it was, hey, I'm gonna build the engine, and now I'm gonna build the engine really narrow, so that when I take off, no air gets into the engine, and I stall and crash. That was one design aspect of it. The other is, hey, let's put square windows on this. Because the square windows will create stress points right here, which makes it really easy to fracture. So there you go, that's the Comet 1. That's what happens when you have piecemeal development. There are a lot of things we can do with our waterfront, right? We could do nothing. We could build it, we can make a smaller one, or we could step back and do some urban planning and start thinking about it. Do nothing, You know, there's some pros, there's some cons to that. I don't think anyone likes it, the pier is crumbling, so let's skip that one. Build it like it is, well, there's some good, there's some bad. But the truth is, as Jim went over, no significant impact. Do you believe that? If not, let's go to the next option. Reduce it. Well, if you reduce it from my earlier financial presentation, basically you have less square footage, you still have to pay the infrastructure, so all the businesses there are gonna pay even more dollars per square foot, meaning you're gonna get even less local businesses. So this is a really bad option for local businesses. Or you could think of it holistically, urban planning. We have one waterfront here, let's have a plan. Let's have one plan. You know, everyone knows the pier needs redevelopment, AES power plant needs to go. Let's think about it holistically. Let's think about how the development, the zoning, the design, and all aspects of our city work together in a system engineering standpoint, right? Instead of piecemeal development, let's come up with a comprehensive plan that looks at our whole city. Here's some examples of how urban development can work. This is Buenos Aires, beautiful port down there, lots of shops, a couple restaurants down there, but a lot of open space and beautiful design there. This is San Diego. You've got Singapore, Harbor Gardens by the Bay is a beautiful botanical garden down by the bay. And then you've got Boston, the Institute of Contemporary Art. So there are a lot of examples where you take a nice waterfront and you develop it with a key feature, some gardens, an art museum, other things like that that create a draw, which is what Nils is talking about, right? The ships, the cruise terminals, all those things. We don't have a draw here. You know, think outside the box. Let's try to develop something new and interesting. And development is already happening. This is just an example, a huge list of things that are already happening here. So when people say doom and gloom, we're completely screwed if we don't go with the $300 million Center Cal plan, that's not true. You know, there's already a lot of stuff that's happening down there. So that's it. What's our legacy, you know?
Thank you guys so much for coming. I think, you know, our whole goal is to not create, you know, a divide. And I think that part of the reason there's a divide is because people are on opposite ends of the spectrum with this project. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay. My concern is, you know, where's the leadership to bring us together? We're going to do as much as we can to have conversations with Center Cal and with the other side to ensure it's something that we all believe in. I don't think that we're any less of anyone because we have concerns with the project. It was deeply troubling to hear that there were elected officials in the room last time we met, and they walked away without giving any constructive criticism about how we could work together. And that was kind of my first realization that there's really a lack of leadership in this city to move things forward. Because any visionary, any leader would take this opportunity to say, hey, let's work together. This is one city, one plan. We realize what you guys are doing. We realize that there's concerns, but how do we make this work? So we are going to do our best. And that's something that you have our word. We're not in this to create, some huge uprising with people, but we really want to respect the other side and honor what they're saying and hoping that they'll do the same with us. And when you guys are out there and you're seeing social media posts, I always tell people, stay above the fray and really focus on the issue, the policy issue. Don't make it personal. I don't think anything less because someone supports this project. We're one city that has to come together. And I don't want to let this divide people. Let's not let this be like a Measure B opportunity. So we'll together, stay together. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about next steps. There's envelopes over there. This is going to cost a lot of money. Whether it's just convening meetings or continuing a conversation, it would be helpful to have donations. So if anyone is willing to donate, we will gladly accept your money. So there's envelopes over there. And think about that as we continue on. The conversation, will happen. The next meeting is in January. It's on the front of your agenda. We will work diligently to see if we can put together some type of workshop or opportunity for you guys to come together to actually write really constructive comments. But if we don't, just know that all of our contact information is on the front of your agenda. I'm an open book. So you can call me anytime. I may not get your call. I will definitely commit to calling you back that day or later that day. The best time to reach me is between 7:30 and 8:30 a.m. and between 4:30 and 5:30 p.m. because I commute to downtown LA for an hour and I am kidless. So that is the time to reach me. So anyone that has concerns, call me then. So if I missed your call in between the day, it's because I have a pretty demanding job and I have a family. So, but always available. But I'm going to go ahead and end this meeting. Is anything else? Yes, if you want to make checks payable, you can make checks payable to Building a Better Redondo. That's going to be our funding stream right now. And we will be a project of Building Better Redondo as it stands right now.
Any other questions?
So yes.
Next meeting?
Next meeting is on January 7th. The next comment period is on, or the next public comment period is on January 9th. Inside your packet is kind of I tried to do like an outline, a how-to guide of how to write constructive, really meaningful comments. And maybe we can circulate those via email to some kind of outline, something to help you guys out. But again, we are all available via email. You can feel free to call any of us or reach us via email. Lastly, anyone that has Facebook, add us. We will share all of our updates and everything that's going on there, and we do have a website. And thank you so much for coming, and we'll take questions from there. So,
Can we have your PowerPoint?
yes. Anyone
Do we email you and?
yeah, email me, and I can anyone. Yeah, I can email you either the packet or what do you?
Once the website's up, we'll post it.
It's, we'll post it on the website too. Yeah.
Okay, and Better Redondo address? Is that?
It's on the envelope.
You can-
Oh,
it's
okay,
also
yes,
there,
yes, yes, okay.
Yeah. So anyone that wants to contribute can